The massive screen in Earth's United Defense Command Center lit up with an unfamiliar signal. Admiral James Weber stood from his chair, his weathered face reflecting the blue glow of the incoming transmission. Around him, the command staff worked with practiced efficiency, their movements precise and calm despite this being humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. "Signal verified, sir. It's coming from just beyond Mars orbit," reported Officer Tom Reed, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "The ship, if that's what it is, measures roughly 3 miles in length." Weber nodded, straightening his uniform. At 60 years old, he had spent 4 decades preparing Earth for this moment. "Put them through." The screen flickered, revealing a tall figure with gray skin and elaborate robes. Its eyes were large and black, set in a face that looked almost human, yet unmistakably alien. Behind it stood others of its kind, all wearing what appeared to be military uniforms. "I am Lord Dax, primary ambassador of the Galactic Empire." The alien spoke in perfect English, clearly using some form of translation technology. "We have come to offer Earth a position within our grand empire." Weber's expression remained neutral. "Welcome to Earth's space, Lord Dax. I am Admiral James Weber of the United Earth Defense Force. We're interested in peaceful dialogue." Lord Dax's lip curled slightly. "Excellent. The terms are simple. Earth will submit to Imperial rule. Your military forces will be absorbed into our fleet. Your resources will serve the Empire. In return, you receive our protection and technology." The command center fell silent. Weber's eyes narrowed slightly, but his voice remained steady. "That sounds less like dialogue and more like an ultimatum, Lord Dax. It is the same offer we extend to all developing worlds." Dax replied, his tone dismissive. "Your civilization has barely reached your own moon. You have no faster-than-light travel. The Empire spans 10,000 worlds. Surely you see the logic in accepting our generous offer." Weber walked closer to the screen, his hands clasped behind his back. "Lord Dax, I look at your uniform and see medals. You're not just an ambassador, you're a military commander. So let me speak to you soldier to soldier." Dax straightened, clearly surprised by Weber's observation. "Your empire may span thousands of worlds," Weber continued, "but I notice something interesting about your species. Your hands are smooth, your stance is relaxed. You've never had to fight for survival, have you?" "We conquered hundreds of," Dax began. "No," Weber cut him off quietly. "Your empire conquered hundreds of worlds. But you, your species, you evolved in peace. You chose war as a policy. We survived it as a necessity." The Admiral gestured to the command staff around him. "Every human in this room is a descendant of survivors. Our entire species exists because our ancestors outsmarted, outfought, and outlasted everything that tried to kill them. From predators to plagues, from ice ages to nuclear wars, we're still here." Dax's expression shifted slightly, showing the first hint of uncertainty. "Look into our history, Lord Dax," Weber said softly. "In the last century alone, we've created weapons that could crack planets. Not because we wanted to, but because we had to. We've developed military strategies that let the weak defeat the strong, because we had no choice. We've mastered the art of war through blood and necessity, not through choice and convenience." Weber leaned closer to the screen, his voice dropping even lower. "So I'm going to give you a warning, soldier to soldier. Look at our history, really look at it. Then take your fleet and go home. Because if you force us into war, we won't fight like your other conquered worlds. We won't follow your rules of engagement. We won't play by your concept of warfare." "Is that a threat, Admiral?" Dax asked, his voice hard. "No, Lord Dax, it's a mercy." Weber's eyes were kind but firm. "We don't want war. We've seen too much of it. But if you force us to fight, we will bring to bear every brutal lesson our species learned through millennia of survival. And you will learn, too late, why humanity never lost a war against a superior force." The command center remained silent as Weber's words hung in the air. Lord Dax stared at the human admiral, his earlier dismissiveness replaced by something closer to caution. "You have 1 Earth week to remove your ships from our solar system," Weber said finally. "After that, we will consider your presence an act of war. Choose wisely, Lord Dax. Humanity would much rather have you as friends than enemies." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in silence. Officer Reed looked up at Weber. "Do you think they'll listen, sir?" Weber turned away from the screen, his expression grim. "For their sake, I hope so." 1 week after Admiral Weber's warning, the Empire's ships hadn't moved. Instead, their number had grown to 15 massive vessels, all holding position beyond Mars. In the Imperial command ship, Lord Dax stood before a holographic display of Earth's solar system. His advisors had spent the week studying human history, and their findings troubled him, but not enough. "Look at these records," his chief analyst said, pointing to images of Earth's wars. "They fight constantly. Their entire history is filled with conflict. Surely this shows their weakness, not their strength." Dax nodded slowly. "A species that wastes resources fighting itself cannot stand against the Empire's united might. We command the largest fleet in known space." On Earth, Fleet Commander Marcus Stone watched the growing Imperial fleet from his underground command post in the Rocky Mountains. Unlike the Empire's bright, polished command centers, his facility was built for war. Backup systems had backup systems. Every screen could work without power. Every soldier knew how to fight in the dark. "They're positioning for an attack," Stone told his officers, pointing to the enemy fleet's formation. "But they're doing it exactly by their manual, just like Admiral Weber said. They know war is theory, not practice." The defenders of Earth had spent the week preparing. They had studied the Empire's tactics from data gathered by hidden probes. The Empire fought like they played chess, everything by the rules, every move planned and proper. Stone smiled. Humans had long ago learned that the best way to win chess was to flip the board. In high orbit, the first wave of Earth's defense platforms powered up. They looked like normal satellites to Imperial scans. The Empire's analysts had counted them, measured them, and dismissed them as primitive communication tools. They were wrong. Lord Dax gave the order with complete confidence. "Begin the standard conquest pattern. Send in the first wave. 100 ships should be more than enough for such a primitive world." The Imperial ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. Their golden hulls gleamed in the sunlight as they approached Earth. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering, built by a civilization that had never needed to hide its power. That was their first mistake. Stone pressed a single button on his command console. Instantly, hundreds of communication satellites transformed. Hidden panels opened, revealing weapon systems that had been designed with one purpose: to fight enemies who were stronger than humans. The Empire's ships never saw the first strike coming. Their sensors, designed to detect energy weapons and missile launches, missed the simple kinetic rods that fell from the satellites. Chunks of tungsten, accelerated by gravity, smashed through the Imperial ship's perfect formation. "Impossible," Lord Dax shouted as the reports came in. "Their weapons are primitive. They don't even have energy shields." Stone's voice crackled across all frequencies, deliberately letting the Empire hear him. "Lesson 1, he said calmly. "Never assume your enemy is showing you everything they have." The Imperial fleet tried to regroup, following their standard protocols. That was their second mistake. Stone had studied those protocols. He knew exactly where they would move. "Activate the grid," Stone ordered. Across the solar system, hidden quantum beacons activated. The Empire's ships suddenly found their hyperspace drives blocked by a field humans had developed decades ago, preparing for exactly this kind of fight. Lesson 2, Stone continued, his voice still eerily calm. "The most dangerous enemy is the one who has spent years preparing for you." The Empire's fleet commanders tried to adjust, but their training worked against them. They had learned to fight by rules and patterns. Humans had learned to fight by breaking them. Earth's actual defense fleet finally revealed itself. The ships were smaller than the Empire's vessels, but they moved in ways that made no sense to Imperial tactics. They attacked from impossible angles, used debris as shields, and turned their own damaged ships into weapons. Lesson 3. Stone broadcasted as the Empire's perfect formation dissolved into chaos. Those who fight for survival fight harder than those who fight for glory. In his command ship, Lord Dax watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart by tactics no civilized military would ever use. 70 of his ships were destroyed or disabled. The rest were scattered, their crews shocked by the savagery and efficiency of Earth's defense. "Fall back," he ordered finally. "Full retreat." As the surviving Imperial ships fled, Stone sent one final message. "Remember Admiral Weber's warning. If you return, these lessons will get much harder." In orbit above Earth, the wreckage of Imperial ships drifted silently. On their golden hulls, scorch marks and impact craters told the story of an empire that had just learned why humans had warned them to run. 2 days after their first defeat, the Empire returned. This time, they'd brought 1,000 ships. Admiral Weber watched from the United Defense Command Center as the massive fleet filled the space around Earth's orbit. Their golden ships blocked out the stars, creating an artificial night over half the planet. "They still don't understand," Weber said quietly to Commander Stone, who stood beside him. "They think numbers alone win wars." Stone nodded, his hand steady as he typed commands into his console. "Should we show them our real fleet now, sir?" "Not yet." Weber smiled slightly. "Let's teach them about Earth's oldest military trick first." Across Earth's surface, hidden bunkers opened. But instead of launching missiles or ships, they released clouds of what looked like metal dust into the atmosphere. The Empire's sensors detected this, but classified it as debris or pollution. That was exactly what humans wanted them to think. Lord Dax, watching from his new flagship, laughed at the display. "Are they trying to hide behind their own pollution? Primitive creatures. Begin the bombardment." The Empire's ships charged their main weapons. Each one could level a city. Together, they had enough firepower to crack Earth's crust. But when they fired, something strange happened. The beams of energy hit the cloud of metal dust and split apart. Each particle in the cloud was actually a tiny mirror, precisely engineered to redirect energy weapons. The Empire's own firepower scattered in thousands of directions, most of it shooting back into space. "Impossible." Dax slammed his fist on his command chair. "Their technology isn't advanced enough for this." A new voice came over his command channel. It was Weber. "Wrong again, Lord Dax. We've had this technology since before we reached space. We just never needed to use it until now." Stone's voice joined in. "You see, we humans learned something important from our many wars. The best weapon isn't always the biggest. Sometimes it's just the smartest." The Empire's ships tried to move closer, to get under the mirror shield. But as they did, Earth's true defense activated. The metal dust wasn't just mirrors. Each particle contained a tiny amount of programmable matter. As the Imperial ships approached, the dust gathered around their engines, forming into small but devastating shapes. "Nanites," one of Dax's officers whispered in horror. "They turned their whole atmosphere into a weapon." Weber's voice came again, calm as ever. "We learned another lesson in our wars, Lord Dax. The environment is always a weapon. Whether it's Russia's winter, Vietnam's jungles, or Earth's atmosphere, the battlefield itself should fight for you." The Empire's ships started failing as the Nanites ate through their engine housing. Hundreds of vessels, each one a masterpiece of Imperial engineering, found themselves dead in space. That's when Earth revealed its real fleet. They didn't rise from the surface. Instead, they simply appeared, dropping their optical camouflage. They had been there the whole time, hiding in plain sight. Earth's ships were smaller than the Empire's, but they moved like wolves among sheep, striking fast and vanishing again. How? Dax demanded as another wave of his ships went dark. How are you doing this? 500 years ago, Stone replied, human warriors learned to blend into forests by wearing green. 300 years ago, we painted our ships gray to hide in the ocean. 100 years ago, we bent light around our aircraft to hide them from radar. He paused. Did you really think we wouldn't figure out how to hide in space? The battle lasted less than an hour. When it ended, half of the Empire's mighty fleet hung powerless in space. A quarter had retreated in panic. The rest were scattered, their perfect formations broken, their combat doctrine useless against an enemy that refused to fight the way they expected. In the command center, Weber turned to Stone. Send the message. Stone nodded and activated all channels. His voice reached every Imperial ship, working or not. This was your second lesson in how humans wage war. We gave you a chance to retreat. We showed you mercy. Now you have forced us to show you skill. He paused, letting his words sink in. You have 12 hours to collect your disabled ships and leave our solar system. After that, we will demonstrate what happens when humans decide to stop being merciful. As Earth's ships vanished again, their optical camouflage hiding them among the stars, Lord Dax finally understood. The humans hadn't been exaggerating about their experience with war. They had been understating it. The Imperial High Council chamber buzzed with angry voices. 50 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy argued as they watched replays of their fleet's defeat above Earth. Impossible, shouted one counselor, his gray skin dark with rage. No primitive world could defeat our best ships. Lord Dax stood silently, watching the recordings. He saw Earth's clever tricks again and again. The mirror clouds, the hidden ships, the nanites. Each time, his fleet had fallen for human strategies that seemed obvious now. We must send everything, another counselor demanded. Every ship, every weapon. Crush them completely. The council's doors opened. A human figure walked in calmly, making every counselor fall silent. It was Admiral Weber, appearing as a hologram. I apologize for hacking your communication systems, Weber said politely, but I needed to speak with you one last time. Guards rushed to attack the hologram, passing right through it. Weber smiled sadly. Your empire, he continued, has never faced a species that truly understands war. You fight because you want to. We fought because we had to. And that makes all the difference. The head counselor found his voice. You dare to invade our secure chamber? To lecture us? No, Weber replied. I came to give you one last warning. Right now, there are human agents in every major city on every world in your empire. We put them there years ago, when we first detected your civilization. The council chamber erupted in panic. Guards rushed to protect the counselors. Weapons were drawn. Don't worry, Weber said calmly. If we wanted to hurt you, you'd already be dead. Instead, I want to show you something. The hologram changed, showing images from across the empire. Humans, perfectly disguised as different alien species, going about their daily lives, working in spaceports, teaching in schools, serving in the Imperial military. Impossible, Lord Dax whispered. Our genetic scans were designed to detect known species. Weber finished for him. We've had genetic manipulation technology for centuries. Did you really think we couldn't fool your scanners? The council watched in horror as more images played. Critical military installations, secret research facilities, the private chambers of Imperial leaders, all photographed from the inside. Now, Weber continued, you have a choice. You can escalate this conflict, and we will be forced to show you everything we can do. Or you can end this now. The head counselor stood, his voice shaking with rage. You think your spies scare us? We are the Imperial High Council. We command the largest fleet in history. Weber's hologram shook his head sadly. You still don't understand. Let me show you one more thing. The hologram changed again, showing a small black cube floating in space. This device, Weber explained, is currently hidden near the star of every major Imperial world. We call it the Star Whisperer. It took us 50 years to develop it, after we learned how to manipulate solar flares. The council chamber fell completely silent. If activated, Weber continued, it can force a star to release a massive solar flare. Nothing that would destroy a planet, of course. We're not monsters. But it would disable every electronic device on the planet's surface. He paused. Imagine your entire civilization losing power at once. No ships, no weapons, no communications. Lord Dax stepped forward. You're bluffing. No one has that technology. 600 years ago, Weber replied, humans learned to split atoms to make weapons. 300 years ago, we learned to manipulate quantum states. 100 years ago, we learned to control gravity. He smiled gently. Would you like to bet your empire that we haven't learned to manipulate stars? The head counselor sank back into his chair. For the first time in Imperial history, the council faced an enemy they couldn't simply overwhelm with force. The choice is yours, Weber said. Escalate and face an enemy who has spent centuries preparing for war. Or end this now, and we can work toward peace. The hologram faded, leaving the council in stunned silence. After a long moment, Lord Dax spoke. Now I understand why they warned us to run. The Empire didn't listen to Weber's warning. Instead, they launched their largest attack yet. 10,000 ships appeared around Earth. They came from all directions, using new routes that they thought would surprise the humans. Their weapons were charged. Their soldiers were ready. This time, they would not fail. In his command center, Commander Stone watched the massive fleet arrive. He didn't look worried. They still think this is about ships and numbers, he said to his officers. Time to show them what human warfare really means. He pressed a button on his console. Across the Empire's fleet, strange things began to happen. Ship engines shut down without warning. Navigation systems showed wrong directions. Weapons targeted friendly vessels. The Empire's mighty fleet fell into chaos as their own technology turned against them. Lord Dax, watching from his command ship, finally understood true fear. How? He demanded. How are they controlling our ships? A message appeared on every screen in the Imperial fleet. It showed a human officer named Jack Wilson, head of Earth's Cyber Warfare Division. He looked like a normal man, not the demon that Dax had expected. 3 years ago, Wilson explained, we sent out special communication satellites. Your ships connected to them automatically, thinking they were part of your network. Since then, we've had access to everything. Dax watched helplessly as more ships lost power. But our security was designed by people who never had to protect themselves from real threats. Wilson finished. You see, in our history, we had to guard against enemies who lived among us, who spoke our language, who thought like we did. We had to become very, very good at protecting our systems. The Empire's fleet tried to fight back. They launched fighters, fired weapons, attempted to regain control. But nothing worked the way it should. Then Earth's real attack began. Small ships appeared from nowhere, moving in ways that Imperial pilots had been taught were impossible. They didn't use energy weapons or standard missiles. Instead, they fired simple metal slugs, accelerated to incredible speeds by gravity and magnetic fields. Lesson 5 in Human Warfare. Stone's voice announced to the fleet. Sometimes the simplest weapons are the best. Your energy shields are designed to stop plasma and lasers, but they can't stop a piece of metal moving at half the speed of light. The Empire's ships began to fall, not in tens or hundreds, but in thousands. Their perfect formations meant nothing against an enemy that attacked from every direction at once. Then something even stranger happened. Imperial crews began reporting ghosts. Strange figures appeared and disappeared on their ships. Critical systems failed. Whole sections of ships went dark. Boarding teams, Stone explained calmly. We've had cloaking technology for personal armor for decades. Did you think we only used it on ships? Lord Dax ordered his remaining ships to retreat, but they couldn't. Every time they tried to calculate a jump to hyperspace, their computers showed different numbers. They were trapped. Please, Dax finally called out. We surrender this battle. The attack stopped immediately. The human ships pulled back, vanishing again behind their cloaking fields. Stone's voice came one last time. Do you understand now? He asked quietly. Do you see why we warned you? This isn't about technology or numbers. It's about experience. Every trick we've used against you, we learned from fighting ourselves. Every strategy, every tactic, was bought with human blood over thousands of years. Screens across the Imperial fleet showed images from Earth's history, ancient battles with swords and shields, modern wars with tanks and planes, the first space conflicts. Each image showed humans learning, adapting, surviving. We didn't want this war, Stone continued. We tried to warn you, but you forced us to show you why humanity never lost against a stronger enemy. Because we don't fight fair. We don't fight with honor. We fight to win. The Empire's mighty fleet hung powerless in space. Of the 10,000 ships that arrived, only 3,000 still had power. The rest floated silently, their crews watching Earth with new understanding. Lord Dax looked at his homeworld's direction, knowing he had to report this disaster. But what could he say? How could he explain that every attempt to defeat the humans had only revealed how much more dangerous they truly were? In the darkness of space, Earth's hidden fleet watched and waited, ready to demonstrate even more lessons if needed. On the Imperial capital world of Prime, chaos reigned. Reports from across the Empire told the same story. Humans were everywhere, and they were unstoppable. In the Grand Imperial Palace, the High Council received messages from 20 different worlds. Each one said the same thing. We wish to leave the Empire and seek Earth's protection. Lord Dax stood before the council, his once proud uniform now worn and tired. The humans, they're not just fighting our ships. They're winning without firing a shot. The head counselor slammed his fist on the table. How? How are they turning our own worlds against us? A new voice answered from the doorway. Because you never understood what real power means. Admiral Weber walked into the council chamber. This time, he wasn't a hologram. Guards raised their weapons, but Weber didn't even look at them. Your weapons won't fire, he said calmly. We disabled them an hour ago. Please, sit. We need to talk. The council watched in shock as their best guards checked their weapons. Nothing worked. Your empire, Weber continued, walking to the center of the room, was built on fear. You threatened worlds until they joined you. But humanity, we learned a different lesson from our wars. He pulled out a small device and pressed a button. The chamber's giant screens came to life, showing scenes from across the Empire. Look, he said. Really look. The screens showed human aid workers helping on worlds the Empire had ignored. Human doctors, treating the sick in poor systems. Human teachers, sharing knowledge freely. Human engineers, fixing problems the Empire had never bothered to solve. We didn't just send soldiers, Weber explained. We sent helpers. People who could show your worlds a different way. A better way. Lord Dax understood first. The rebellion. You never needed to fight us at all. Weber nodded. The best victory is the one where your enemy becomes your friend. We learned that after centuries of war, sometimes the strongest weapon is kindness. The head counselor stood up, shaking. You think helping some poor worlds will destroy our empire? We still have millions of ships, thousands of worlds. Do you? Weber asked quietly. The screens changed again, showing the Empire's shipyards, or what was left of them. Hidden human agents had spent years placing tiny devices in key positions. At Weber's signal, they activated. Across the Empire, shipyards shut down. Weapon factories stopped working. Military bases went dark. We could have done this at the start, Weber said. But we wanted to give you a chance to learn, to understand why fighting humanity was a mistake. A new message appeared on the screens. Commander Stone's face looked down at the Council. The Imperial fleet is now disabled, Stone reported. All ships, all bases, all weapons. We've locked them down. No lives lost. No shots fired. He smiled slightly, just like Admiral Weber planned 5 years ago. The Council chamber fell completely silent. You see, Weber explained, this wasn't a war. It was a lesson. Every battle we fought was designed to show you something, to teach you why we warned you to run. He paused. But now you have a choice. What choice? Lord Dax asked. You've already won. No, Weber said. We've shown you that we could win. That's different. Now you can choose. Keep your empire, but change how it works. Or watch it fall apart, as more worlds seek Earth's protection. The head counselor slumped in his chair. How? How did you defeat us so completely? Because you fought like an empire, Weber said kindly. Giving orders, expecting obedience, but we fought like humans. Adapting, helping, changing. And in the end, that's what really wins wars. Not the side with the most ships, but the side that understands people better. Lord Dax stepped forward. If we agree to change, will Earth help us build something better? For the first time, Weber smiled. That, Lord Dax, is the first wise question you've asked since we met. Outside the palace, the sun set on an empire that was about to learn its hardest lesson. Sometimes the strongest enemy becomes your best teacher. 1 year after the Empire's surrender, the Great Hall of New Unity Station hung in space between Earth and the former Imperial capital. Representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered to sign the final peace treaty. Admiral Weber stood at the main window, watching ships from across the galaxy dock at the station. Unlike the old Imperial vessels, these ships showed great variety in design and purpose. Some carried diplomats, others brought traders, and many transported students eager to learn from Earth's universities. Lord Dax, no longer wearing his Imperial uniform, joined Weber at the window. I still can't believe how much has changed in just 1 year. Weber smiled. That's because you thought change could only come through force. Humans learned long ago that real change comes through understanding. The station's main chamber filled with delegates. Commander Stone, now Earth's chief diplomatic officer, took the podium. The room fell silent. 1 year ago, Stone began, we faced each other as enemies. The Empire wanted to conquer Earth. We warned them to run. He paused, looking around the room. But today, we meet as equals, ready to build something new. Screens around the chamber showed images from the past year. Imperial worlds learning Earth's medical technology. Human teachers sharing knowledge of agriculture and engineering. Former enemies working together to solve problems neither could fix alone. We could have destroyed the Empire, Stone continued. Our agents were everywhere. Our technology could have shut down every Imperial world. But destruction was never our goal. Lord Dax stepped up to the podium next. We in the Empire thought we were strong because we had the biggest fleet, the most weapons. But Earth showed us true strength comes from helping others grow stronger. The new treaty appeared on everyone's screens. It was simple, just 3 main points. 1. All worlds have the right to choose their own path. 2. Knowledge and aid must be shared freely. 3. War is only allowed in defense, never for conquest. Some asked why Earth didn't take control when we had the chance. Weber said, joining the others at the podium. The answer is simple. We've seen where that path leads. Our own history taught us that empires built on force always fall. But partnerships built on mutual respect can last forever. The head counselor, now called the first speaker, rose from his seat. When we first met humans, they warned us to run. We didn't listen. We thought them primitive, weak. But they showed us something remarkable. An advanced civilization that grew strong by lifting others up, not pushing them down. As the delegates signed the treaty, more images played on the screens. New schools being built on former Imperial worlds. Hospitals opening in poor systems. Trade routes connecting civilizations that once feared each other. "Here is the greatest lesson humanity taught us," Lord Dax said. "True power isn't about having the strongest weapons. It's about having the wisdom to know when not to use them." Weber nodded. "We never wanted to rule the galaxy. We just wanted to make sure no one else did either. Now, working together, we can all reach higher than we could alone." The final signature was added to the treaty. Cheers filled the chamber. Species that a year ago had been enemies now celebrated together. "There's one more thing," Weber announced as the celebration quieted. "Earth is opening its military history archives to all worlds. Not so you can learn how to fight, but so you can understand why we fought, why we warned the Empire to run, and most importantly, why we chose to help instead of destroy when we won." Stone smiled. "Because the greatest victory isn't defeating an enemy. It's turning an enemy into a friend." As the delegates mingled and celebrated, Lord Dax turned to Weber. "Do you think we'll ever fully understand how humanity became so different?" Weber watched as humans and aliens exchanged ideas, shared stories, and planned for the future. "Maybe not, but you're learning the most important thing we discovered in all our wars." "What's that?" "That the best way to win a war is to make sure it never happens again." Outside the station, ships from 1,000 worlds floated peacefully together. The empire that had never lost a war until it met humanity was gone. In its place, something new was growing. A galaxy where strength came from working together, not fighting each other. And it all started because humans gave their enemies a warning. "Run."